anyone riding as much momentum really in the country, in the conference outside of Ole Miss? Is there anyone that has more momentum than the Missouri Tigers heading into the 2024 campaign? Coming off their best season since 2013 when they won the SEC East in their second year in the SEC. Last year's 11-2 finish, Cotton Bowl victory. Nonetheless, it was a Cotton Bowl victory over Oklahoma State in 2013. It was a Cotton Bowl victory in 2023 over Ohio State. So a common theme there. But, man, it was like Eli Drinkwitz, because everyone going into 2023 kind of just expected 7-5, maybe an 8-4, myself included. So Eli Drinkwitz went to the casino, immediately went to the blackjack table. He got dealt a face card and a 5. It counts to 16 for most people. I mean, is he going to stay? I think most people are like, he'll probably stay. No, he hit a 20. I mean, he got a 4. So he's sitting there at 20. He stayed there, ended up having a phenomenal 11-2 season, like I mentioned, just riding a significant wave of momentum. And speaking of momentum, before we get to it, I am your host, Dave Shumate, coming at you here from the SEC Unfiltered platform. We have a ton of momentum coming at you here from the SEC Unfiltered platform. All things SEC, 24/7, 365. Like, subscribe. Also, momentum. RHOBACK. Go to RHOBACK.com and use the code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. I mean, they've already started announcing game times, guys. That if you're going to that Florida-Miami game at the Swamp at 3:30 Eastern, it's going to be a little hot. You need to get your breathable polo. I have mine in my closet. I think my wife's washing them right now. I've used mine. But again, guys, enough momentum to go around between the Missouri Tigers, SEC, Unfiltered, and RHOBACK. Go give them a like. Again, go use the code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. But back to the Missouri Tigers here. Missouri, but before we get into this success, what defines success for Missouri in 2024? Because I think 2023 was such an interesting dynamic. They overachieved. I just kind of want to circle back and talk about 2023 before we talk about what would be success in 2024 for Eli Drinkwitz going into his 5th year. But like I always mention on this segment, what is success? I always want to keep an eye on a few things, revisit some things, because I think Missouri's a very simple one, in my opinion. It's very interesting, dynamic, simplistic compared to some other teams. But let's revisit 2023 a little bit here. Can Missouri, will they be as fortunate as they were in 2023? I mean, they won a lot of close games outside of that LSU game. 4th and 17 against Florida, they got it. Graham Mertz got hurt in that game. That was a close game. They won nonetheless. I mean, every great team that has a double-digit win season has some breaks go their way. In the history of the sport, there's been some breaks, whether it's injuries, the ball bounces their way, some calls, whatever it may be. You have to have some fortunate things go your way and some luck. It is what it is. I don't care what anybody's fan base or your buddies tell you. It just is what it is. Like I mentioned, 4th and 17 against Florida, Graham Mertz getting hurt. The fake punt, to each his own, against Kentucky, kind of changed the momentum of the game. And they were fortunate from an injury standpoint. I could be wrong. Tell me in the comments if I am. But I'm pretty sure Missouri did it. They had the same rotation, all 5 guys on the offensive line for all 13 games. I believe they did not get hit hard by the injury bug at all last year. That's very rare. It's fortunate. You got to have things like that to go your way. You do. So I want to talk about that. And then a hard reset, I should say, on defense would be another. Talking about this year specifically, a hard reset on defense would be something to keep an eye on if I'm a Missouri fan. You lose Darius Robinson on the edge, Tyron Hopper, the backer spot, Chris Abrams-Drain, Ennis Rakestraw, both guys manning those corner positions. You're breaking into a new DC, first time Power 4. This is his first time being a DC at the Power 4 level. Corey Batoon coming over from South Alabama. I think he can do it, but it's still to be determined, to TBD. And I like some of the key pieces they got here. I think it can be done. Johnny Walker on the edge, Chris McClellan. They brought in an interior defensive lineman transferring over from Florida, originally from Oklahoma, I think wanting to get closer to home. Clemson corner, Torino Pride should soften that blow of losing both Abrams-Drain and Ennis Rakestraw. So I think they got some guys there. I think they got some key pieces, but still some unknowns. They lost their 3 best players, or their best players at all 3 levels. And then you're bringing in a new DC with Blake Baker going to LSU, like I mentioned, with new DC coming over from South Alabama, Corey Batoon. So I think those are some things, if I'm a Missouri fan, to keep an eye on to, hey, before I go, get my hotel reservations, my tickets to the playoffs. Let's factor this in, because you can't predict injury luck. I don't like predicting it, but I like talking about it because it's something I think that and special teams, we don't talk about enough in our preseason predictions. predictions. We don't. You can maybe talk about a little bit where games line up on a schedule as well, or 3 things we don't talk about enough when making predictions. But will Missouri have the same starting offensive line for all 12 of their games? I don't know. Will they have a depleted secondary due to an injury? I'm not saying it's going to happen. Just stuff like that happens to teams sometimes, and it just is what it is. So will you get the injury luck again? Hopefully for Missouri you do, but you don't really see that a lot in back-to-back seasons. Things I do like, though, before we get into the schedule, and I tell you a hard black and white number like I do at the end of all these segments of what would be a successful season for Missouri in 2024. I like the production. You got 18th nationally in production coming back. 71% of total production is back. A lot of that on offense. That's second in the SEC, only behind Kentucky. That's big. Like I mentioned, a lot of that production back on offense. And then let's pull it off. Let's share it. The schedule. The schedule is very beneficial. I mean, I see no way they're not 4-0 here. Opening up on that Thursday against Murray State, that should be a win. Buffalo breaking in a new coach. Boston College breaking in a new coach with Bill O'Brien. Vanderbilt 4-0. Missouri should, no doubt about it, be 4-0 before heading to that bye week. And then they go face former Big 12 brother Texas A&M at Kyle Field. That will be tough. That'll be tough. Then they get UMass at home. That should be a win. Auburn at home. Very winnable football game. So is A&M at Kyle Field. Very winnable game. Then they go to Tuscaloosa and Bryant-Denny Stadium on October 26th. What are the chances Missouri is 7-0 rolling into Tuscaloosa? I think that's realistic. I mean, depending what Auburn's doing, I think Auburn would maybe potentially be 6-0 there. I know Auburn doesn't leave the state their first 5 games. They open their first 5 games at home. Then I think they go to Georgia probably for the week. They go to Columbia maybe. So Auburn may be rolling 5-0, 6-1. But my point being, Missouri may be favored in these first 7, at least 6. I think they'll be favored in 6 of their first 7. The A&M game and Auburn will be interesting, just depending on what A&M and Auburn are doing too. Then they go at Alabama. I think they'll be an underdog, obviously, in this one. Then a bye week, depending on what Oklahoma's doing. Very winnable game at home at Fairhope Field. That's a very winnable game at home. At South Carolina, Eli Drinkwitz has never lost to South Carolina. I mean, I know they're due to lose the Mayor's Cup, but and it's at South Carolina. Not saying it'll be an easy game, but what is South Carolina doing that late in the year? That's late. They have any momentum going. Very winnable game again. They haven't lost. I shouldn't think any differently. At Mississippi State, first-year head coach for Jeff Lebby. Very winnable game. It's back-to-back weird trips for you. I mean, I'll admit that, especially geographically. Missouri, depending on when that game is, if that's a late kick, you getting back late Sunday morning, and you got to go to Starkville the very next week. Interesting dynamic. They're a conversation for another day, but they should win that on paper. First year being with Jeff Lebby. Missouri's team's better. And then Arkansas at home. Winnable game as well. They'll probably be favored going into that one. I like Arkansas a little bit better than some people, but I still think Missouri will be better. I mean, there's a real chance Missouri will be favored in 10 of their 12 games. I mean, at A&M, probably underdog, especially if A&M beats Notre Dame. Auburn, depending, could they be 5-1, 6-1 rolling into that? At Alabama, they'll be an underdog. I think 10 out of their 12, they'll be very manageable schedule. And that's why I'm not as high as some people on our network are. There's nothing wrong with that. I like what Missouri's doing. I think on paper, Missouri is a good football team. It's just tough to get that injury luck. Everybody, let's get that mindset right. This is our first time anyone on this team has had the success that we've had. Can we go do it again? Do we want to go get in that weight room? I'm saying starting back in January when they really need to start building this foundation for 2024. Can they get that momentum going? Are people hungry? That's the issue. After you taste success, are people hungry that next year? That's what Eli Drinkwitz and his staff is going to have to fight, is that complacency after a big season last year. But the schedule's there to get to the playoffs. I mean, again, like I mentioned, I think they'll be favored in 10 of their 12 games as we stand right now. But I think defining what is a successful season for Missouri, what is a successful season for Missouri in 2024? I think it's making the playoffs, whatever that may be. I'm gonna put a win total on it. I'm gonna say 9-3. It's tough for me to. That's not fair to me, in my opinion. I may get eaten up in the comments with this. I don't think it's fair to Eli Drinkwitz going into his 5th year, and this Missouri football program and the things they're building from an NIL perspective. They're getting on the same page from a state standpoint with their government. It wouldn't be fair to say 10-2 is what would be considered successful. If anything less than 10-2, it's a failure. No. 9-3. you would like to make the playoffs because I think the schedule is very doable. I think 10-2 is very doable with that schedule. But I think 9-3, it'd be tough to be mad at it. 10-2 regular season finish in 2023 and then a 9-3 finish. It'd be tough to kind of be mad about that at Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz would still be going in the right direction. Remember, last year was Eli Drinkwitz's first winning season at Missouri. That was his first. Nothing wrong with that. He's building it the right way. They've given him ample time. I mean, he was on the hot seat going into last year to some extent. Then he blew it out of the water. Again, remember, people thought he was going to stay on 16, like I mentioned at the beginning at the blackjack table, but he hit and got a 4, and he's sitting there at 20. So, again, I think in 2024, a successful season for the Missouri Tigers would be a 9-3 finish, and hopefully that may get you in to the playoff. I don't know if the schedule will be hard enough, but again, I just think it's tough for me to say 10-2 for Missouri would be an unsuccessful season and not good enough heading into year 5 for Eli Drinkwitz. So there you heard it. I think you got to pay attention here, though. Do you get the injury breaks that you had last year? You got the schedule break. I think the schedule is very doable. And can the defense? Yeah, I have some major questions on the defense at all 3 levels. And can new defensive coordinator Corey Platoon adjust well at the Power 4 level? And I think 9 wins. I would just struggle to say 10-2 right now at Missouri would be anything less than 10 wins would be an unsuccessful season. I just can't say that. So I'm going to say 9-3. Hopefully some breaks go your way. And Missouri sneaks in, but 10-2, they're definitely in, and I think that is very doable. But I appreciate you joining us on this segment of what would be a successful season for Missouri in 2024. Again, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us rate, review, all things SEC coming at you here at the SEC Unfiltered platform. You have a phenomenal day.